Welcome to the Extra Podcast, a production of Northview Community Church in Abbotsford, British Columbia. Your hosts, Jeff, Ezra, and Thalia, will be discussing the Bible, relevant issues, and current events each week. At Northview, we love to study God's Word and discuss how it applies to our lives, but we try not to take ourselves too seriously. So feel free to laugh with us and at us as we try to challenge and encourage you in your faith. Hi, welcome to the Extra Podcast. My name is Jeff Bucknam, and I'm here hosting today in the absence of our dear Thalia. It's Boys Club here today, boys.
Boys Club.
It's me, Ezra Okoti.
Yeah, I'm here.
And Joshua
Hello.
Amazonas. Is it Joshua?
Doesn't matter.
Yes,
Really?
Joshua,
matter?
J, any of those would work.
J-Dog.
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 Yeah, J-Dog's good.
Yeah, J-Dog works.
Do you have a nickname?
My only nickname I ever had was Cripple in middle school because
That's great.
I broke my leg right before a Quebec trip. So that's like the one that
Really?
stuck
Nobody
with me.
called you
Yeah.
anything else?
No, I changed schools too often to have anything really stick.
What
So-
was your nickname, Jeff?
Bucky.
Bucky.
Yeah,
yes.
everybody in New Zealand calls me Bucky. I call my kid Bucky. My son Micah on baseball, everyone calls him Buck. Right? We need you, Buck. Come on, Buck. Ezra?
Ezzy.
Zizzy?
Ezzy. Or Ezzy babe. Or Ezzy baby.
Ezzy baby.
Ezzy, baby.
Ezzy baby.
I'm not going to call you baby. That's just going to be not going to happen.
That's going to be weird.
Listen, what we're going to do today is a little bit different. We hope it's something we're going to do in the future. We're going to have a question and answer battle, a Q&A battle, and by that I mean that each one of us is going to ask a question that the other two are going to respond to, and then we'll go back and forth about that question, and then it'll be my turn, and then it'll be Josh's turn. So Ezra's going to start, and any question he wants to ask about these things have to do with ministry. These things have to do with what it's like to be a pastor. But mostly theology. We're probably going to ask some thorny theological questions to each other and that sort of stuff. And it won't be just I ask the question and you get to have one answer. We'll have a back and forth. I want to probably ask some questions as to your answers. You guys understand?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, good piece of cake.
Yeah.
We'll take care of this. So Ezra,
Yeah.
you're going to kick it off. We're just going to go for a few and see how far we get.
Sure thing.
All right, away
Okay,
you go.
so obviously, Jeff, how long have you been in ministry? You've
I've been in ministry for, 24 years.
You've been
something like
around a long time. Now, the basis of my question is because, when the President of the United States or Prime Minister of Canada, they're always in front of the media. There's always some goofy thing that they do. You can't be in front of media and not have a weird moment. So my question to you, Jeff, is what's your weirdest ministry moment? Either you or something that you've heard, that is really weird.
Well, I'll do one for me. So
Go for
by
it.
ministry moment, this is going to have something to do with, do you want something from preaching or do you want something just in ministry in general?
Just in ministry
Just in ministry in general. You're going to do
Ministry
preaching
general.
later or a different time? Ministry in general. All right.
Preaching later, but ministry
So when I
general.
first came to Northview, I came from a smaller church in New Zealand and showed up here. I was a young adults pastor. I had an office back in those days. Gave that up in order to have this open office thing. Which
God bless you.
Yeah, totally. But I had an office, and one day this guy shows up. This younger guy. He must have been, I don't know. He must have been 19, 20 years old. Anyway, kind of his hat on sideways, and he looked like a bit of a gangbanger type guy, right? And he came in, but he came in with who he claimed was his mother, and his mother. They just came off the street, and they came in with his mother, who had like one of those Bluetooth headset things on the side of it. They used to fit in their ear, and you could walk
Right.
everywhere and just hit the. Johnny Markin used to walk around the office with that. I used to make fun of it, all the time. But
Right.
anyway, so she came in and she was looking very, very corporate, very businesslike. Anyways, they sit down across from me at my desk, and I say, "Well, how can I help you?" And this kid starts shaking and starts saying, "I am in danger. I'm wanted in Langley." I said, by the police? And he said, "No, I'm wanted in Langley by some gangs. And I don't think I'm going to live till tomorrow unless you help me." And I was like, what? How? What? So they started explaining, I got offside with this group over there, and I drove straight here, and I called my mom and asked her to meet me here because you're the only ones who can possibly help. And she's here and she's sitting next to him, just nodding away in her corporate stuff. And she's like, he's in lots of dangers. Can you just guys provide a place for him to stay, some house for him to stay in? And so then I'm sitting there, and it doesn't add up, right? Mm-hmm. So I said, can you guys just hold on a minute? It's like my first week here at Northview. So I went, this didn't happen in Little Nelson, New Zealand. So I walked next door to the office next door, Frank Martins, who was he was the interim lead pastor, and he's a care guy. And I said, Frank, can I just ask you a quick question before I go back to these people? What in the world? What am I supposed to say? And he smiled and he said, just don't believe everything people tell you. Mm-hmm. He said, you should go back and ask them if you can contact the police for them. So I did. I left the room and I went back and I sat down and I said, well, look, I'm new here. And I just went to talk to one of our acting lead pastor, and he just recommended that I contact the police. And this kid shot up and said, if you call the police, I'll be dead by tonight. And I was like, well, I don't see why. This is what they do. Like if you're in trouble with a gang and stuff, they can try to probably protect you or something, or right? Isn't that essentially what they do? No, it'll never happen. And his mother starts welling up in tears. And I'm like, oh my goodness, what's going on? And she's like, oh, you can't you help? Why can't you Christians help? Why can't you help him? And I said, well, why can't, I don't understand. You're here with your Bluetooth headset and stuff. Why can't you help? And she said, well, I can't help. My house is too full and it's too this. She had all sorts of reasons why it is. She could put her son on a couch. You don't have a couch? And she's like, no, we have nothing at all. He needs to come in. And she said, listen, if you can't provide for anything. This guy's like pacing around the room and stuff. And I said, well, let me just call the police. I put my hand on the phone and he grabbed the phone. He slammed it back down. He said, please don't call the police. And at this moment she said, listen, if you can't do that, can you just give him can we just get a little bit of money in order to find a place to stay over the night? If you can't put him up somewhere, is there a way for you to give us some money to pay? And I said, well, wait a minute. Why can't you can't afford, like you have a credit card or whatever, you can't afford to go to a
hotel, motel, something,
like that? And she said, no, we don't have any money at all. We have nothing at all. Can you please put him up at a thing? Anyway, I said, well, listen, no. Like I said, how much are you looking for? She said, well, we need about at least $1,500. And at that point, I was like, I think this is gone. I said, listen, I can't give you $1,500, but I can call the police. And that time, I put my hand again. I said, we have police officers in our congregation. I know some of them. I'll call them. Right? I know one of the guys off duty. He'll come in and he'll chat with you just for a minute, right? I put my hand on the phone, and that moment, that guy, he just started swearing like crazy. And he ran out of my office, the kid did, and he took off down the hallway. And his mother said, I hope you're happy. You just killed him.
Oh, my.
And then they left. Anyway, I was like devastated. I was like, oh, my gosh, I can't believe maybe I did something really horrible here. I got a phone call later that afternoon from Seven Oaks Alliance in our town. And apparently it was from a guy there. And they had called our church to ask if somebody had come in like that. This kid went to Seven Oaks Alliance, and they went to several other churches in our town doing the same
story.
But it changed a little bit each time.
Oh my.
So they were doing the rounds.
They were doing the circuit.
This too. So this was a new thing for me, to come to a place where people actually would try to bilk the church of
money,
something like that. And I learned after a little while that was something that people do here. I mean, there was a point at which we were in a young adults group, and there were some young adults who'd come along, and they would take some tape while everybody was mingling. They would take some tape and they'd tape the doors, you know what I mean? The
latch.
The exit
latch
doors.
to the doors. They
Yes.
tape down the little latch that latched it, so that they would
come
back
later
that night and just be able to open the door up and go in and steal stuff from the church, which just, I was amazed at that. And since then, we've had lots and lots of people, wander around our church and try to steal. I could tell you lots of stories of people stealing stuff from our church, wiping their own feces on the wall, weird stuff. Weird.
Oh yeah.
Weird.
Yeah.
So I was pastoring in Scotland, and I was in Aberdeen, the city of Aberdeen, way north of Scotland, and my church was in in an inner city community, very poor to the extent, and a lot of gangs living there, to the extent if you're just a normal person who moved there, immigrated there, you have the postal code of that location and you go and look for a job and you put that postal code, most employers would be like, I don't know if I should hire this person because ex-convicts, prostitutes, things like that lived in this community. Anyway, so on Sunday, my colleague was not there, so it's me opening the church, and this was a very small church. We were probably about 40 or 50 people in the congregation. I would be the usher, and then I would lead communion, I would sing the songs, I would preach, I would do everything, basically, in this church. Anyway, so on one Sunday, it had snowed, and we had a Sunday evening service. And this is me, Ezra, fresh from Africa. It had snowed, so snow is all new to me, everything. And you'd walk into the foyer of the church, and then you'd enter into the sanctuary. So would leave the front door open for anyone who wants to come, but the door to the sanctuary will close because you want to keep the heat inside. So I'm doing the evening service and all that stuff. Anyway, the service is over, and I come to the foyer, and I find it is full of snow. Why? Because all the kids in the community gathered snow in buckets and put it in the foyer, and were having snowball fights.
That's incredible.
In the foyer. Now, this church was a small church, and I was, of course, during the week, I'm the custodian. So I have to sweep, clean up, everything. Like a small church, the pastor does everything. Oh my. These are the same kids who would smear dog poo on the door before I go. So I'm the one opening the church door. So I'd go there an hour and a half earlier to open the church and get everything sorted, everything like that, right? And I get to the door and I find the entire door. They've gone around and picked up dog poo.
Worked so hard for it.
They worked hard. And then they smeared it on the doors.
Brutal.
And then they sit across the street. And then they see me coming. And obviously it's now wintry, so it's cold.
Yeah. And you have to clean it up.
And now I have to clean this stuff up.
Like, I can't
and
believe
it's
it.
Sunday morning.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Welcome to the ministry.
Oh, it was fun. It was good times.
Yeah.
I'll never forget. Those were good old experiences.
Okay, my turn.
Sure.
All
Go
right.
ahead.
You get two. Sorry. Here's my question. Before, Josh, I want you to help answer this one as well.
Okay.
What I want to know is I want you to give me reasons that you would leave a church. So I know we talk all the time about it's very important for us to stay in local churches. We live in a consumeristic society. I totally get that people will sometimes just hop from church to church to church and constantly be just picking the next exciting moment from a particular new church. A new pastor comes in and just whatever. We just hop. So we tend to decry this, and I want to say, yep, that's largely true. But what reasons would you give that are legitimate for somebody to leave one church and to attend another one?
I think for me, the first reason that comes to mind is when the church false doctrine. And by that I mean you now walk away from the gospel. You deny the closed-handed
Give me some of the
doctrine. So, for example, Jesus is not Lord.
Yeah.
All roads lead to heaven. There is no hell. These kinds of things. The moment you begin to deny the gospel of Jesus Christ, that right there, I'm done.
So definitions about who God is and
Yes.
What we call
salvation. How do people get
Christology and
saved?
How do people get saved, and whether and the extent of the saved, meaning that when I say extent of the saved, meaning is everyone in the world saved, or is God saving?
Yes. Does God
those who
save?
believe?
Yes.
That kind of thing. Okay.
Right. So for me, anything that is central to the gospel, it's not a secondary issue or an open-handed issue. That's closed-handed.
Should you not leave for open-handed stuff then?
Open-handed issues?
Give me a couple of them.
An open-handed issue would be okay.
Baptism.
Yeah, baptism is one.
Do you say that?
Do I say what?
Would you believe that baptism is an open-handed issue?
I don't know if baptism is.
Do you know what I mean by that?
Yes.
I mean, like, I'm saying paedobaptism, which is the baptism of
baptizing-
children,
yes.
versus the baptism of adults, which by creed, credo baptism,
Yes.
paedobaptism.
Right.
So if I believe that I should be baptized that as a baby, as part of the covenant community, it doesn't mean I'm saved,
Right.
But it means that it's a sign that I'm part of God's covenant
Right.
community, the community of faith.
So-
but
So I'm going to say this. Now I'm going to speak out of both sides of my mouth, okay? So as an MB pastor, I would say, you know what? We are not paedobaptists. We don't baptize children.
okay.
Yes, we don't.
So there are
Okay?
some so out of that side of your mouth, you're saying that there are some secondary issues that you would leave, because basically the Mennonite brethren started,
Yes.
Mennonites anyway, started as a break-off group
Yes.
from people who believed otherwise. So that
Right.
we exist in a community now that
Right.
basically is defined by our saying that, no, you should leave churches that do paedobaptism.
So they would say that. Now, for me, would I go that far? I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know if I would. See, I would leave a church when you preach a gospel that does not lead to true biblical Christianity. If you're going to preach in such a way that I'm now going to be left wondering, are you really a Christian? If you can believe that, are you a Christian? Like, there is no hell. Okay, so now what have you done with the judgment of God?
Yeah, so that's
Yeah,
a bit,
so that's a close-handed issue.
You're saying
But
that's closed.
but open-handed issues, I don't know if open-handed issues are big enough. I think it will depend. It depends on the individual and their convictions about that specific open-handed issue. For example, Calvinism, Arminianism.
Yeah.
There are those who will be Calvinists who will say, no, if it is either Calvinism or nothing, because Arminianism is not Christian. Some may say that. They may go that far. But I would say, no, Calvinism, Arminianism would be more of an open-handed issue than closed-handed
For you.
issue. Yeah, for me.
Okay.
But for some people, they may be like,
But generally speaking, what you're saying here, though, generally speaking, is that one of the reasons that you should leave a church is doctrinal.
oh, absolutely,
Josh,
yes.
what do you got?
Yeah, I was gonna say echo some of that, the doctrinalist stuff, but I think I don't know, like I think big life changes, moving.
Yeah, I mean, you
cities,
can't
whatever.
obviously stay
Yeah.
at the church that you're
Yeah.
at if you're in a new town.
Yeah.
Why are you picking such an easy one? You're such a weenie.
Well, because the big one was doctrine stuff, and I don't know.
So is there any other reason? So in other words, if my children are not flourishing in the church that we're in, even though the church is faithful and doing good work, but they're not flourishing there, and they are connecting to another church in town where the youth ministry might be a little bit better, in the sense that it's not better objectively, it's just better for my particular kids, and maybe I go and I attend that church and I find that it, is a bit more my speed, or
I will go
the
on better.
services are a little bit more
I'll give
thing,
you-
and maybe the music's a little bit better, or something like that. You would say that somebody should not go.
I will give you one better. So
Just answer the question.
yeah, I'm going to nuance what you just said. So I'll give you a better example. So let's say you come to you attend a specific church, you don't like the music. Okay, you just hate the music for whatever. Yeah, break stuff, Jeff. Good on you. So you don't like the music.
Why did
of
you
this-
say break stuff? You need to tell
Yeah,
people.
because you just broke something on the mic.
The
here.
microphone is falling apart.
Yeah, it's falling apart. Thanks for playing with it. Anyway, back to my response. So you attend this church, you don't like the music, and every time you don't like the liturgy, you just walk out feeling like, man, you're just angry, constantly angry when you attend there, because maybe the church has changed, it's new, or maybe you have a new worship pastor, whatever. At the end of the service, you don't feel like you've engaged God. If anything, you're just critical constantly. Then the question becomes, why are you there? Why do you go and worship God? Oh, you supposedly come to worship God, but you end up angry because the worship was too loud, or they didn't sing the songs you
So how would
like,
you
or-
counsel somebody like that then? Are you saying that you would counsel them
so-
first by saying, "Hey man, get over yourself"?
So at the beginning, I would say, okay, let's talk about why you come to church. Why does this issue bother you? We would figure out what that issue is. But if the person is really having a difficult time about whatever it is that they're mad about regarding the service, then I would say, you know what? Is it edifying to your soul to be coming here every week and leaving angry? So you come here so that you collect all these reasons why you hate the service here, because it's not changing and they're not implementing the changes you want. So at the end of the day, is it edifying to your soul to come and worship God if you keep leaving angry? Maybe it might be a good idea to consider, hey, maybe the church down the street actually worships the same way in a style that you like.
Okay, so my question then for you is that not consumerist?
I don't, in some cases, yes. In some cases, you could say that it is consumerist.
So
yes.
it is okay to leave a church for consumerist reasons.
No, I would say this. I would nuance it to say this. It depends on my meeting with the person and the reasons why they are angry about the music or they are angry about whatever it is.
Let's say that they're angry. They're frustrated with the
frustrated is a
existing
better word.
church for, I don't care whether it's music or the preaching or something that they just don't connect with, right? Maybe something's changed in the life of the church. Maybe their life stage has changed, right? And so earlier in their lives, there was a particular kind of bent that they had. Now they don't have that, or maybe they've grown into a different kind of, like they're just, but that the church that they're attending at the present moment is not necessarily their vibe, and they're frustrated repeatedly at the church. Are you saying that this person should or should not leave that church? Or when I say should, is it permissible in your mind?
If the frustration is consistent and there is no way around it, then they can leave. Would I call that consumerist? No. I would call it consumerist if they're church hopping, where they're always looking for the fancy, shiny thing. Okay, so church X is having this thing and it's really rocking, so they're there. And then you have another Pastor Jeff Bucknam now comes and he starts in this church and they hear, oh, we got to go. And then they keep going. So they're always looking for the next shiny thing constantly. You're church hopping, now you become a consumer.
Okay.
But I would say, if you're attending a specific church and it's not edifying to your soul what is being presented before you, and you keep
it's
you're
not
trying.
doctrinal.
It's not a doctrinal issue.
It's
just a taste issue. It's not edifying to you, or they don't have the kind of programs.
But you're saying that first you should try to get over yourself.
Yes.
You should figure out how you can be a benefit to the church and how it is that you
Right.
can help solve some of the challenges that you see.
Yes.
But if the frustration, I hear you saying that if the frustration continues for a long period of time, it actually might be the best thing both for you and for the church that you currently attend.
For you to go.
For you to go. It's
Yes.
not actually the end of the world
No.
for you to recognize and for the church to recognize that there are seasons in people's lives.
Right.
That's what you're saying?
All
right, I'm not going to respond at all to any of that because this is a Q&A thing. You get to give the answer, and you didn't ask me the question.
Oh, no.
Josh Stern, you got third.
Okay, so my question is biggest mistakes that you guys made in your early ministry.
The internship. Oh, sorry. Just kidding. I started an internship program, Josh. The biggest mistakes that we made early on.
Just stuff that stuck out to you, like,
in our
man,
ministry.
Can't believe how big of a mess I made.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's not going to be programmatic. You know, like I made this choice to do this particular event or program. It was not. I was following the footsteps of lots of people who had done programs before me. Quite honestly, most of it had to do and continues to have to do with attitude. I don't think I was fully prepared in ministry for the challenges that come with it, and in particular the criticism that comes with ministry. And I responded early in my life very negatively, repeatedly, to criticism. And I don't mean that like, you know, somebody criticized me and I just yelled at them as hard as I could. I mean that I really took it to heart. I still do to some degree, but I really took it to heart. And I wanted to know why they were frustrated and what was causing them difficulty, and I thought, well, if I could just explain myself to them, they would see that my viewpoint is reasoned and they would be charitable toward me and understand, as I did with them, that this is not, the end of the world kind of issue.
Yeah.
But I came to realize, actually, that no amount of discussion or dialogue was going to solve it, because most of the reasons that people get frustrated about a particular thing is not just because you did it. There's a whole history behind their frustration with that thing. You know, they might, You might remind them of somebody they didn't like in junior high school, and
Right.
that's silly. But like you might remind them of a teacher that they had once who they really liked, but then turned their back on them. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
But there's lots of reasons why it is that people make criticisms that you're not always sure about. So what I tried to learn and have tried to learn is not, first of all, if somebody makes a criticism, try to seek first what's the real issue. Like, what are you really frustrated about, and why are you frustrated about this particular thing?
Like there's
Right.
usually a heart issue.
Yeah, what is
attached
it
to
that's
things.
going on there? And so instead of responding with, well, here's the 14 reasons why, which I still do, that goes on in my mind. Oh, I'm going to write 14 points of, trying to find out why it is that they believe what they believe, why they're frustrated about it, what's gone on maybe in their past. It's helped me, the times I've done that well, it's helped me to think, oh, actually, you're not really frustrated about the thing you're frustrated about. It's about this other thing. And that doesn't have anything to do with me, ultimately. But also just the recognition that you're just going to get it. Like that's part of ministry. You're gonna take it in the chin. You're dealing with volunteers and with people who've got all sorts of heart issues. It's similar in some ways to being in any kind of leadership position. You're trying your best before God to make decisions that are honorable and self-sacrificial. And some people will read those decisions and they will attribute motives to you that are self-indulgent. And this is all about you and you just love yourself so much, or like something like that. And you can't, there's not a lot you can do. You got to stand before God and you got to trust that what you've done the very best of your ability before God. And, where you're wrong, you're willing to submit to the gaze of God and say, yes, they're right about that. But you do your ministry before the Lord ultimately.
Sweet.
For me, I would
Ezra?
say the biggest would be cultural, not being intentional about understanding the culture where I'm pastoring. So 2 examples. I was in Scotland and I was this African guy, very excited being there, and I'm pastoring, and so I'm invited to someone's house for a meal. Okay, so I go to this guy's house or this family's house, whatever, and I'm having this meal, and I'm the pastor of the church, and they've served me a good, decent meal. There's good fellowship on, let's say, a Tuesday evening. Now, in Scotland, and particularly in Aberdeen where I was, the expectation was that if you invite me to your house for dinner on Tuesday, I'm inviting you to my house on Friday. Like it was the unsaid expectation. But Ezra, the African, is like, hey, sweet, I'm going to Jeff's house.
Free meal.
Totally. So I totally pounded at Jeff's and we have a good old time and I'm done. And then I forget about Jeff and the week goes on and the second week and the third week. And Jeff is waiting for me to invite him. And Ezra is nowhere near inviting Jeff. And Ezra ends up never inviting Jeff over. And so now Jeff takes offense at Ezra and his lack of care. He's so selfish and greedy, and he's just taking advantage of people because I did not know that I was to invite Jeff. Or in coming to North America here in Canada, one of the things as an African growing up, respect for your seniors and respect for your bosses is a huge thing. So one way of showing respect, for example, in a work setting like this, so Jeff may have an idea that I don't agree with. So I did something, I thought it was right. Jeff comes and questions why I did this particular issue. Now, Jeff is my boss. So as an African, when Jeff questions why I did that thing, the expectation is I am quiet, I am silent, I'm submissive. He will say what he has to say, I'd agree with him, and then I will do what he's asked.
Right.
But in North America, it's kind of like, no, you push back. Like you...
Yeah, if you're not responsible for the thing, you say so.
Yeah, you say.
Right? You say respectfully, but you say no.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, this is why this happened, or it wasn't me who did this, or whatever the case may be. But in Africa, no, you don't speak back. You never speak back.
This has been very useful for me with Ezra. I just blame everything on him.
Incredible.
He doesn't say a thing. He just sits there and takes it. He's been responsible for a lot of
a lot of things. So in many cases, I found that it could be a ministry decision that I made that I found was legitimate, and my boss would ask me, Why would you do this? Because either they don't understand why I did it, or maybe it didn't go very well, but now I have to be held accountable.
Yeah.
But I ended up being quiet, not responding or pushing back, and then I was labeled, "Oh, then Ezra doesn't think rightly about things, doesn't think through things," and it would make me so angry inside. No, but I'm trying to respect you by not
You're screaming
answering
inside.
back. And man, I look back and I say, man, I wish I had said something there. I wish I'd have been more forthright, because I had opinions. I wanted to share them, but he's my boss.
Yeah.
So
being culturally astute is an important thing.
Huge.
And it's not just between Africa and North America. That's a big distance, but it's also, I mean, I'm an American working in Canada. I've had to learn those sorts of things. I look back at some of the challenges that I've had. You know, when I'm being
and I think
I'm being clear. So my intention is just to be clear so that we can discuss. We don't talk past each other, right? So here's what I think.
Yes.
Clearly, I'm not saying it because
I don't like you.
It's unassailable, and you can't question it. I'm saying it because I just want to be clear with it. Well, that's read in a lot of Canadian contexts as being dogmatic and forceful, and you just, you know. So in the end, I wish I knew that at the time, because I would have been like, oh, so before I say this forcefully, can I just tell you that I'm going to say it so that, you know what I mean, to couch it in the right term.
Yeah, you have to nuance it a little bit.
And this is good advice for anybody going into ministry anywhere. It's not even ministry, but anytime you're going to go and you're going to work in a new location for anything, like try to learn the culture of the place, try to learn the culture of the people, and understand how you're being understood.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I'm not super South American. I went there when I was 2,
So you're kinda, but not quite.
Yeah, I'm Canadian mostly, but on the inside, half of it's like kind of Brazilian. But it comes out in sports or card games or anything, and I'll get really like amped. And I'm like a pretty quiet guy outside of that, but then I'm playing card games and I'll start yelling, or I'll start going like like out of frustration, or like shouts of joy or whatever, and the people here just kind of like turn and look at me. like, what? Can you calm down, please?
What's wrong with you?
This is just soccer. Like,
you should watch the NFL with Jeff. It's a beautiful experience.
Joshua, you can watch anything with me.
Okay, sweet. I'll take you up on that.
It's all one speed.
Oh man, it's one speed.
All right, Ezra, you're back up.
Okay, so
We got room for probably another 1 to 2 questions. Here we go.
Okay, so strangest. No. Preaching moments. Weirdest preaching moments. I got a good one.
We have a board, by the way. The reason that you're hesitating is that we beforehand we wrote a bunch of questions up on a board, and we're choosing from the ones that we already threw up there, and Ezra's chosen preaching what?
Yeah, the weirdest preaching moment episode. So you're a preacher, obviously, and you preach very well on a weekend. But do you have a do you have a story where you totally absolutely bombed it? Okay, bring it.
Well, bombed it. I've had some moments where it's been very, very difficult. I will say one time I finished a sermon in when I was in New Zealand. I did an itinerant minister. I was a professor during the weeks, and then I did an itinerant work where I'd go around in the weekends and I'd preach at lots of different churches. I got invited all over the place. And one of the churches that I was preaching at was one I'd done before, and I thought, I had prepared most of the sermon, but I really hadn't thought a whole lot about the conclusion, like how I was going to finish the sermon. So I went to this church, and I thought, I'll just sort it out when I get there. It was a little church, and it was lovely folks. I knew a good chunk of them, and for some reason, because I had done so much study, I had taught so many classes during the week, it just sort of fell by the wayside. I woke up on Sunday and I'm preaching there, and I thought somehow that I had come up with a conclusion to the sermon. But then, so I'm preaching through the sermon, and I got my notes in front of me, and like I had looked at beforehand, but I hadn't. Usually I look a lot and spend a lot of time with it, but I just hadn't had the chance. I got to the end of the sermon, and there was nothing at the bottom of this page. It just stopped, and I was like, I had one. I said, well, I guess that's enough for today, and that's it. I didn't pray. I just walked right out. Oh my God. This older lady came up to me afterwards, and she said, "Can I just, young man?" Because I was like, what at that time, like 27, young man. That was the worst ending of a sermon I have ever heard. Can you prepare better next time?
Wow.
It's like, yes, I will. I've never done it since. I'll give you another one, though.
Okay, go.
It's a little bit more, dicey. So I was speaking at a youth conference. I came here. I was a young adult pastor, and I was speaking. This is lots of years ago, but I was speaking at a youth conference, and one of the kids who came was part of the youth conference. So there's like 300, 400 kids there from different youth groups all over the place. And one of the kids who came had struggled with Tourette syndrome. And it was Tourette syndrome where he'd swear out loud or make big actions and stuff. And so anyway, the youth pastor came up to me and said, dude, this is a really good guy. You just need to know that when you're preaching, sometimes he likes to sit in the front because he likes to worship the Lord, right? And you just need to know that as you start preaching, there's a likelihood that he might say something out loud or make gestures towards you. And that's what he said, gestures. And I was like, oh, it's, whatever. I'd been through I'd preached long enough to have dealt with kids, little babies. I'd preach at churches where they let their kids run free in the Lord of the Flies sort of way. And they're like running through my legs and stuff. You just keep going. You just keep going, man. You just keep going. So anyway, so I get up there and I start just talking for a little bit. And I'm about like 1-2 minutes into the sermon. And this kid's in the front. And he has both his middle fingers up straight in, like he's shoving them straight forward, looking me in the eyes, just repeatedly, like flipping me off over and over and over again. And I kind of was looking around like, does anybody else see this? He's doing this. And it really threw me off. And then he started to make all sorts of other gestures that I will not repeat here over and over again for the first like 5 minutes. And it got to the point where I don't even know what I said to the people, but I was saying it with this sort of like giggle in my voice. The guy I was doing ministry with, he was doing the worship stuff that time. He was in the back and he was killing himself because he could see what was going on and he was just falling over laughing. And I was like, what do you do? I can't point this out because he's got Tourette's. I don't want to point that out.
Right.
So you just keep going. You just keep going.
You just keep
going.
going.
Very awkward. It was the most awkward. I was proud of myself because I didn't say anything. You just keep going.
You just keep going.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have an interesting story. Okay. So I was pastoring young adults in a previous ministry location. And so I had about 250 young adults in a room. And so I had preached this sermon. It was a heavy type of sermon, and we had communion at the end of the service of the sermon. So the worship was great. I come up, I do what I at the time felt my best work, like I had really brought the mood, set the tone for communion. So I finished the sermon, and then I prayed, and then I told the people, this is now time for communion. This is how we're going to do it. And I had some young adults in 4 corners of the room. You can go there. You can take your piece of bread, and you can dip it in the juice, in the goblet, and then we can all eat together, that kind of thing. So there I am, setting the mood. The band is up behind me. They're just playing quietly. The mood is ripe. And I say, so for communion now, I've already prayed for it. For communion now, all you have to do is just stand up and choose what corner, the closest to you, and you can go and you can pinch the loaf. And then you can dip. And then people start laughing. You can pinch so I'm wondering, why are you laughing? I have no idea why they're laughing.
Come to the corner
and I say it again.
The loaf.
So say the corner. And I say it again. You just go. And my worship pastor, he is now howling. He's red in the face. And I'm like, what in the world are you laughing at? Okay. Man. So I finish, and then he's now trying to get the mood back, but the whole room is laughing. And I have no idea why they're laughing. So after I finish, I go and I stand at the back, and now the worship guy starts playing so that people can go and do communion. And then one of my young adults come to me and said, dude, never say pinch the loaf again. Do you know what it is? No, I don't. And then they told me. And I was mortified. Oof. Oh, I was mortified. Like the whole evening was perfect until that.
There's a cultural challenge there.
Oh, my word.
Words don't mean what they mean everywhere.
I know, right? That was ridiculous. One more story. So, same church. It was a mega church. It was, at the time, slightly bigger than Northview. At the time. So, I was given the privilege of preaching on a Sunday morning. So, it's 10 o'clock service. It is packed. packed thereafter. They had a balcony. It was full and TVs all around. So I'm the preacher. So I go up. So I had preached Saturday night service, Sunday morning service, and the sermon was really going great. I was really feeling it. Like, it was really great. So I left my preaching notes in the pulpit. They have this big pulpit with a little bit of a shelf underneath the pulpit, the surface. So I left my notes in a file under there. I went, mingled with people after the 8:30, so 10 o'clock service. The worship band is great. They've played and everything. Now it's the preacher's turn to go up and preach. Everybody's now seated there. This is my first time preaching in this church. It had gone well the 2 services. So I'm feeling good. I go and I put my hand in that shelf on the pulpit. The lights are on. It's game on. Cameras are rolling. And the notes are not there. And these people do live translation, which means I don't want to ad-lib here. I don't want
you have to speak what you did.
I have to follow the script.
Yeah.
Because they were translating in 6 or 7 different languages. And
What'd you do? What'd you do?
So I bent over, and everybody's looking at me now. Everyone is quiet. They're waiting for the sermon. It was about 1,600 people in the room at the time. Yeah. And then I said, well, I left my notes here after the first service, but they're not here. But I know the sermon, so I guess I'll just have to preach from memory. The lead pastor of the church was seated right in front, so he gets up and marches out, and I'm like, oh no. Because I was wondering, should I pause and tell him, go to my computer, open it, print it off.
Can everybody just sit here for the next 5
and should I go? Should I send my lead pastor? Who am I going to send? So, by God's grace, the person who's running the slides, the sermon slides, of course, has a copy. But they've marked their copy all sorts of ways. Right. And for me, the points where I want to really highlight, it's not highlighted because the notes are gone. Yeah. But anyway, they brought me that thing. And by God's grace, I had preached that sermon twice. So I knew all the corners and I knew what was coming next.
Man. It's a fear that I have, by the way, that I've had. Man. I have dreams about that very thing. Oh. Like I don't really use my notes either. I mean, I don't use them much at all. But it's like having this.
But it's there.
It's a security blanket.
Yeah,
right? You know that they're there. So I'm always checking. I probably check 8 times before. Okay, these are notes. Right sermon. Did some jerk make them?
Right.
You know.
Yeah. Here at Northview on a Saturday night. Usually in my notes I have, like, if I'm going to make a pithy statement, I write it down so I read it when I get to I want to emphasize this point. Yeah. So I had 3 pages and I printed a double print and I gave the pro presenter person their first set, the person who does the slides, and I'm remaining with mine. So I'm all good to go. I'm in the green room waiting for the service, waiting for my time. So it was my time to go up and preach right here at Northview. So I go and I preach through, and I'm going through page 1, and the sermon was really good. I felt good about the sermon. And then I went to turn it now to look at page 2. It's not there. I'm now talking to people, but in my mind, I'm freaking out. Yeah. Where is page 2? And this is Sunday morning. Center Court has a video live link of Ezra there. So I'm thinking, Center Court is watching. There are people here watching, and I have no page 2. Where is page 2? Oh, man.
Did you find it, or did you just go with it?
I went with it. I went with it in memory.
That's now, what?
Oh, man. I felt
just go with it.
Awful.
Absolutely.
That was good times.
Incredible. Well, Ezra... Good. I'm going to finish finally with one short story about Ezra that made me very happy, and then we'll call it a day. Ezra, if you don't know this, when he preaches, we now have LED lights, and they're much less hot.
Oh yeah,
but they used to be really hot. And Ezra would sweat, and he would bring these, he'd bring handkerchiefs with him and stuff. Anyway,
Ezra's covering his face in shame right now.
One Saturday night, he walked off the back of the stage, but somebody forgot to turn his mic pack off.
Yeah. And by the way, that Sunday, we had one of our congregants called Todd Kajawa and his little daughter, Courtney, beautiful girl who struggles with some health challenges. And so Todd brought, the plan was I finished the sermon, and then Todd and his little girl, this girl would sing and Todd would play the guitar. And it would be a sweet song.
Yeah, so they were getting up ready to sing.
Right.
And Ezra walked to the back, and his mic pack was on. And he says to somebody as he turns the corner back into the room, "I'm so sweaty." And it broadcasts across everything, and the whole room just lost it. I'm so sweaty.
And what is funny is I heard people laughing, and I had no idea. Why are they laughing?
Yeah.
Why are they laughing? And then it dawned on me.
So
My
good.
pack is on.
Yeah, I'm so sweaty.
My word.
Incredible.
Well, with that lovely thought, we must bring things to a close. God bless you, Ezra. Thanks, Josh, for being the both producer and contributor to this Q&A battle. We will do it again another time. I've got many other questions
Yeah, theological.
to position you as the heretic you probably are, Ezra.
Oh, really? No, we'll
It's
talk about
on.
yoga next
It's on.
time.
I think I
Yoga.
basically... Listen, I won. It's over. God bless you.
God bless.